Hello, it's Tuesday, July 4th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. A tune from the American Revolution entitled The Patriot Reprise. So, the 4th of July, history, anybody? Well, it's also known as Independence Day, July 4th. It's been a federal holiday in the United States since 1941. But the tradition of Independence Day celebrations goes back to the 18th century and the American Revolution. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence, and 2 days later, delegates from those 13 original colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence, that historic document drafted by Thomas Jefferson. From 1776 to the present day, July 4th has been celebrated as the birth of American independence, with festivities ranging from fireworks, parades, and concerts to more casual family gatherings and barbecues. Boy, howdy, bring those barbecues. So to all Americans, wherever you're living now, happy 4th of July. Here's that daily report, as usual, from earthsky.org, and it augurs well, we think, for tonight's fireworks watch in the United States. The moon's dark side faces Earth. Tonight, see if you can make out the dark areas on the waxing gibbous moon. These smooth, low-lying lunar plains are called Maria, or Mariah. It's the plural for the word mare, the Latin word for sea. And you should be able to see the darkened portions on the moon with the eye alone. The dark Maria on the moon's near side, the solidified remnants of ancient lunar seas of molten magma, make the near side of the moon reflect less light than the far side, which has fewer Maria. So in terms of albedo, or reflectivity, that whiteness, the moon's dark side is its near side. If you're interested in scrutinizing the Maria more closely, it suggested binoculars or a telescope could come in handy. Remember, the view will be better around the time of sunset or early dusk, before the dark of night accentuates that moon's harsh glare. So there will be glare. In times past, astronomers really thought the dark areas contrasting with the light-colored, heavily cratered highlands were lunar seas. In some ways, they were correct, except that these seas were of molten magma instead of water. Now solidified, this molten rock came from volcanic eruptions that flooded the lunar lowlands. However, volcanic activity, at least from basaltic volcanoes, is now a thing of the moon's past. For the most part, lunar Maria are found on the near side of the moon. In this respect, that makes the near side not the far side, the dark side of the moon. Yes, perplexing. It is a conundrum for sure. Maria cover about 30% of the near side, but only 2% of the far side. The reason for this is not well understood, but it's been suggested that the crust on the moon's far side is thicker, making it more difficult for magma to reach the surface. The lighter-colored highland regions of the moon are composed of something called anorthosite. It's a certain kind of igneous rock. On Earth, anorthosite is uncommon, except for locations in the Adirondack Mountains and the Canadian Shield. For this reason, people in this part of the world like to fancy that the moon originated from their home turf. The prevailing theory states the moon was formed when a Mars-sized object crashed into the Earth, creating that ring of debris that eventually condensed itself into the moon. Time will tell whether this explanation for the moon's origin is true or false. Here's the bottom line. Strange as it may seem, the moon's dark side is its near side. By that, it's meant that the near side of the moon reflects less light, due to a collection of dark, low-lying lunar plains that are solidified remnants of ancient seas of molten magma. Cool. Well, it's cool now. Here's something else that once was hot and has now cooled considerably. We grabbed this story from Forbes.com, their space bureau. Here's the headline. NASA just released evidence of lava waterfalls on Mars. There is a set of amazing images. You can check them out later by heading on over to UFOheadlinenews.com. They will be there in all their magnificence. These images depict lava which cascaded down the wall and terraces of a crater as it made its way to the crater floor. They're 3D images taken from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the MRO. They used the context camera to get a shot of an area on the northern rim of a 19-mile-wide crater on Mars. The crater is situated in the western portion of the Tarsus or Tharsis, it's spelled Tharsis, volcanic province. The molten lava that is depicted likely behaved similar to liquid water, given the morphology and turbulence of this solidified flow. Stepping back through time, it appears the lava flowed toward the crater from the north-northeast. When it got to the crater, the lava began to climb the crater rim and breached the rim in 4 different locations. After breaching the crater's rim, the lava then cascaded down several different terraces, producing what must have been an incredible display. There wasn't quite enough lava to fill the entire crater floor, given the visible edges of the more recent lava flow and the dustier, lighter-colored deposits next to it. Tarsus is a volcanic plateau near the equator of Mars and is home to some of the largest volcanoes in the entire solar system. 3 massive shield volcanoes within the Tarsus Plateau are Arisa Mons, Pavonis Mons, and Ascraeus Mons. Ascraeus, that's spelled Ascraeus. It's the tallest at an elevation of 59,000 feet. That's about 20,000 feet taller than Mount Everest, which is, by the way, 29,029 feet. The images were sent back to Earth from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which was launched in 2005 as a multi-purpose spacecraft meant to explore Mars from orbit. This spacecraft was built by Lockheed Martin. It cost $270 million. It was commissioned by Jet Propulsion Laboratory out of Pasadena, California. JPL then launched the MRO, and it successfully reached Martian orbit on March 10, 2006. It joined 5 other spacecrafts that are currently orbiting or on Mars collecting samples and analyses. The MRO has several cameras, spectrometers, and a radar used to attain more information about Mars. The combination of these 3 primary instruments allow scientists to understand Mars' stratigraphy, morphology, mineral abundance, and ice. We're guessing stratigraphy, well, the stratus, the surface. The images produced by the MRO help geologists understand the volcanic history of Mars. As you probably know, Mars doesn't have a spinning liquid core, and that prevents it from developing a magnetic field. This limits Mars to a very faint magnetosphere and doesn't protect the planet from being bombarded by charged particles. This prevents Mars from developing any atmosphere, and it makes human colonization of the planet much more difficult. Interestingly, NASA recently announced that they are looking into launching a giant magnetic field to protect Mars from solar winds. Sound crazy? Well, the writer of this article, we couldn't find a credit, thinks that it's crazy enough to just possibly work. And right here at UFO Headline News on Inception Radio Network, we'll work at keeping you in the loop on this one. Speaking of loops, here's the latest from SpaceX. They terminated their second launch attempt for the Intelsat 35E. They halted that launch at T-10 seconds. Daryl Etherington writes this for TechCrunch. Update, 8:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time yesterday. The launch was once again aborted at T-10 seconds, which is the same time it cut off during yesterday's attempt. That suggests it was again halted by an automated computer cutoff, although SpaceX said on the launch broadcast the issue from yesterday had definitely looked fixed. The cause of yesterday's abort was a reading that showed the rocket's guidance system was off, but later examination found that all was good with those systems, and instead it was the computer itself that needed adjustment. SpaceX is still looking into the cause of today's hold, but there's a backup launch opportunity. That's today. We'll keep you updated tomorrow. SpaceX has been efforting to get this off the ground for a while now. It's a backup window to a backup window. The Intelsat 35E launch won't involve an attempt to recover the first stage of the Falcon 9 rocket used to propel it to space, but for good reason. This is the heaviest payload SpaceX has attempted to launch aboard a Falcon 9, and such cargo requires that the rocket be configured in a way that makes it impossible to recover a reusable first stage. This launch is the third in just 10 days for SpaceX. It launched missions both last Friday and last Sunday. SpaceX also just recovered that Dragon capsule it used for an International Space Station resupply mission it flew on July 3rd. It's the first Dragon capsule that's visited the ISS previously and then returned to Earth, been refurbished and used over again. What a way to recycle. Whenever that takes off, it's going to be streamed live by SpaceX. You can find listings, we're pretty sure, someplace on the internet. It says here it's about 15 minutes prior to launch that stream begins. Well, it's not as critical as trying to launch something into space, but we owe apologies to our gentle listeners. We missed World UFO Day. Yep, we did. June 24th and July 2nd. Apparently it's celebrated twice. So here's a story with a byline for Don Sweeney, who writes it for the Sacramento Bee. The truth may be out there.